This video was brought to you by Squarespace. Hey, it's me, Arlo. Squarespace made building my website so easy, it turned me invisible. Okay, look, I do 2 of these a month. They're not all gonna be winners. But you know what is a winner? Squarespace's simple, intuitive website builder. I don't know a single thing about coding or any of that scary stuff, but all I had to do was pick a template, mess with it, and suddenly Arlo Recommends was up and running. And keeping it running is just as easy. It's straightforward, it's convenient, I can embed whatever I want, schedule my posts to go out and automatically push to social media whenever I want. Mine's kind of a blog-style site, but if you need more for your site, Squarespace offers loads of very powerful extensions, as well as some really nice analytics, so you always know how your site is performing. To try out Squarespace for yourself, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. Then when you're ready to launch, head to squarespace.com/Arlo to save 10% off your first website or domain. And now, for today's recommendation... this steamed hams meme. I'm very happy to see that this meme is so good, it lives on even years later. Simpsons memes tend to stick around, don't they? They're eternal. Well, this one is like the intro to a Netflix true crime doc, and it's truly next level stuff. The effort they put in is incredible. Thanks again to Squarespace. I'm invisible again. Bring it on. In March, the annual Game Developers Conference was held in San Francisco. There are a lot of gaming events out there, but GDC is all about developers. They meet every year to make connections, discuss the state of the industry, and showcase the development tools of the future. And it's really, really cool. I got to go a few years ago, and I had a ton of fun. I cannot wait to go again. And when I did go, I got to see firsthand what kinds of technologies are currently being pushed and developed. The show floor was full of booths and demos showing off the latest in game engines, motion capture, other artistic tools, whatever you can think of. Each product aimed to convince developers that this was something to get in on. This was something to use. This would make things easier or better. And in most cases, these technologies were quite impressive. Very, very promising. There was this energy there, this feeling that anything was possible with games, and all of this impressive tech was poised to make it all that much better. It made it feel like we were living in an exciting time. But there was also a very large presence at the show that had a different kind of energy, and I imagined that this was probably somewhat new. A tremendous number of booths were dedicated to AI in all its forms. This was back when the concept was really beginning to explode, and loads of companies were there trying to get in on the ground floor and push AI as the next big revolution in gaming. And there were people visiting these booths, sure. I have no doubt that there were many meetings between these AI pushers and higher-up managers of larger gaming companies. But when it came to smaller devs, there was this pervasive sense that these AI folks were not welcome. Maybe it was just my imagination, but it kind of felt like people were avoiding them like they were snake oil peddlers. And I do believe they knew they weren't wanted there. They had an air of desperation to them. They often set up tables out in the hall so they could try to flag people down and hand them pamphlets. Whenever someone did this to me, I told them plainly that if I embraced the AI stuff they were selling, I would be canceled, to put it plainly. I would be laughed off my platform. People would lose respect for me. And you know what? I can't say they would be wrong to do so. Now, I know that I have just opened up a tremendous, bulging can of worms, and there will no doubt be a lot of, discourse in the comments. I've not really talked much about AI because it's such a big subject with so much to consider, and honestly, I don't really want to go into the whole thing today. This is one giant ongoing argument that's been playing out for years now, and it ain't getting any prettier. Me? What's my stance on it? Well, I think you can probably glean from the title of the video and the lead up to this point, but I'm not a fan of AI. It obviously has a lot of potential applications. It's fun to mess around with, and it doesn't really rustle my jimmies quite as much as it does with other people. I don't know, I just don't have the energy to hate things actively like I used to. But I do recognize AI as a threat. Generated images are already infecting the internet, filling it with so much weird garbage that it's getting harder and harder to search for real images. Worse, though, is the idea that as the tech gets better, big companies will use it more and more to replace actual artists. And I have no doubt that this was a very, very big topic of discussion at this year's GDC. Media Media is already becoming so corporate, so soulless, that the thought of a future where a significant amount of the media being created for the masses isn't made by humans, but by machines trained to give them exactly what they already want? It's downright dystopian from an artistic standpoint. I mean, there's always been cheap schlock created just to make a quick buck, but this would take it to a whole new level where humans are barely even in the picture, and artistic expression within these works is entirely limited. Even schlock can have some sort of value at times. It can push some boundaries. It can inspire somebody somewhere. It can try something at least a little bit new. But AI art won't do that. It will only regurgitate, and it will stagnate, and the brains of the people consuming it will probably follow suit. Or maybe not. What do I know? Long story short, no, I am not a supporter of AI art. I could spend all day digging deeper into why, and yeah, we will be digging a little bit into why, but let's get to the real point of the video. This year at GDC, there were a few companies showing off AI that allows a player to interact with NPCs in real time, chatting naturally and having something like a real conversation. And one demo in particular that got a whole lot of press was presented by... oh, Ubisoft. Here we are again. It's funny because I just did that big video on why Ubisoft is evil and inept and all that stuff, and when this story cropped up, I was like, okay, I don't want it to seem like hating on Ubisoft is my job now, right? I can't just stay on this Ubisoft hate train forever. But in the end, I decided, you know, they just make it too easy. As always. I mean, I can't not. We were just talking about how gross they are, and here's this, a new gross thing. I gotta talk about it. It's certainly no surprise that Ubisoft would be at the forefront when it comes to incorporating AI into games, seeing as they have been similarly enthusiastic to embrace other big shifts within the industry, such as microtransactions and the always online live service model, and finding inventive new ways to abuse their employees. As far back as 2018, years before the AI Pandora's box was opened forever, they were talking about how they were starting to use AI and how it was the future of game development. And at GDC 2024, Ubisoft showed off their NEO NPC technology. In a closed-door demo, they brought journalists in to chat with characters in real time, using their voices. Instead of a full game, this was more of a proof-of-concept scenario where the player was invited to take part in a resistance, where they've got to work with NPCs to come up with a plan to take down some corporate or political power, I don't know. Really getting to know the characters and testing the limits of their verbal abilities was the goal. And you know what? I'll be the first to admit, the results are impressive. Extremely impressive. These NPCs seem to have intimate knowledge of the situation and even their own histories. When asked very specific questions, they had eerily appropriate answers. Sean Hollister, writing for The Verge, produced some great answers. He asked Bloom, one of the AI characters, to tell him why he should be part of the resistance with one word. And Bloom responded with passion, then went on to back it up with a little spiel. YouTuber Corbin Brown has his whole demo experience on his channel, and you can watch him working with another character named Iron to plan an operation. He presents options not originally part of the plan, and Iron considers and even accepts some of these suggestions as though she completely understands them.
I hadn't considered that. But yes, that could work even better. Let's use a tranquilizer dart to neutralize him.
AI detractors often look for faults in presentations like these, and there are certainly faults. Reaction time is still a little slow. The responses aren't always perfect. Anything using AI voices is bound to have some weird-sounding hiccups, and I'm sure you can confuddle these NPCs if you try hard enough. But I'm of the opinion that pointing out the flaws is a very poor way to argue your case, because the tech is only getting better. AI doesn't know how to do hands? Well, someday it will, and then what ammo will you have? AI dialogue sounds a little stilted? Someday it will know exactly how to sound like a human in every case.
It's just so unsettling, you know?
And this demo illustrates, with frightening clarity, that the tech is evolving rapidly. AI exploded onto the scene with chatbots and image generators just a few years ago, and since then it has already improved dramatically. Only a couple years from now, it may be next to impossible to distinguish what was created by a real person and what was generated using a prompt. This is terrifying. I'm trying not to be all doomsday about it, but honestly, it scares me. I hate to sound so dramatic, but it feels like we might be on the cusp of a poisoning of the very concept of art, which is something that's never happened before. This is unlike any of the other leaps in art technology that we've ever seen. But again, let's try not to get too deep into it here. Let's stay focused on this NEO NPC demo and what it might mean for video games. Personally, the idea of AI NPCs in my games is, for lack of a better word, Once again, I will admit that this is impressive, and I also won't try to claim that such technology has zero merit. As with most AI stuff, there are some real entertaining applications here. I'm sure there's a novelty to speaking with game characters as though they're real. Heck, I'd like to try it out. That really does sound pretty amazing. This is something we've all dreamed about since forever. We all want perfect virtual reality that feels just like real life, and the ability to casually speak with characters and have them imitate real people is a big part of that. Watching Star Trek, I may dream of what it would be like to move around the galaxy at warp speed or teleport to the other side of the planet in moments. I may daydream about having a doctor who scans me with their medical tricorder and fixes every one of my problems with a painless hypo spray. And I may drool at the idea of having access to a replicator. But nothing ever gets me wishing like the holodeck. That has always been the #1 Star Trek technology I wish I had. Replicator is a pretty close second. But the holodeck, perfect virtual reality, the ability to experience literally anything a person can dream up. That's where it's at. Star Trek features a lot of fantastical elements, but the only really unbelievable thing about it is that in the future, people are able to live their day-to-day lives without spending every waking moment in the holodeck. Point is, yes, we all want this kind of flawless experience to at least some degree. Yes, I do think it must be neat to have what feels like a real conversation with an NPC. As a kid especially, I frequently wished I could randomly chat with the characters in my games. Who didn't? There's so much I've always wanted to ask a Goron. What do rocks taste like? But I have 3 big problems with the concept. 3 main reasons why I don't really want to see this kind of technology used in my games. Reason number 1. This really doesn't have as broad an application as one might initially expect. There simply isn't a need for this kind of feature in most games. The ability to speak with NPCs will probably not have a dramatic impact on the average gaming experience. I could see it working best in VR or in games that are meant to be very immersive, where it's less about the gameplay and more about the story, the whole experience. Kinda like Ubisoft's demo here. The game isn't the point. When you open up the ability to talk to the characters, that kind of becomes the game. That's an activity in itself that might just get in the way of anything else. True, as it becomes more common, it might lose its novelty and just become another feature. Maybe I wouldn't be so distracted from the main game by the allure of having these NPC conversations if I'd already played 24 games that use the feature. And I get that it's not necessarily a bad idea just because the application might be limited. I just can't help but feel like it's less of a revolution in game dev and more of a gimmick. Games are an art form. A character saying a line in a game is contributing to whatever the game is trying to say artistically, at least in some small way. The vast majority of the time, the characters say what they say because that's what the writer wanted them to say. A character should be allowed to serve a limited purpose without needing to open up this whole limitless conversational rabbit hole. That's when a game stops feeling like a piece of art and starts feeling more like a consumable entertainment product. Which leads me to reason number 2. At the risk of delving too much deeper into the whole AI problem, he said, doing it anyway, I don't want this kind of AI stuff in my games because games are art. Art is a human expression, and I don't want to consume art that was not made by humans. Simple as that. There's already so much art out there, more than I could ever enjoy in 1,000 lifetimes. I don't want to waste time taking in stuff that was generated for me by an AI that was fed a bunch of actual art and learned how to regurgitate it at me in just the right way. All art, to at least some degree, says something, communicates something about humanity, something about the person or people who made it. It's an exchange of ideas between the creator and the recipient. We take our beliefs and our observations and our experiences, and we use those to inform the art we create. And so from art, we all learn from each other. What can a machine teach me about humanity? About what it's like to be alive and experience love and loss and joy and sorrow and all that? What can an AI that only exclusively knows how to imitate tell me? So yeah, no. Beyond memes, you know, AI memes, yeah, they're pretty fun. And maybe like those generated AI art videos that you kind of get sucked into and suddenly an hour has gone by. Beyond relatively harmless applications where the AI is just helping people make silly, shallow entertainment that wouldn't have been possible otherwise, I'm just not interested. Memes, yes. Trippy visuals to zone out on and that kind of stuff, sure. Real art, no. The very idea of AI producing something meant to be seen as actual art is kinda disturbing. Art is very important to me, and art without humanity isn't just not art. It's a scary facsimile of art. It threatens art. It's the difference between some random person who isn't you showing up at your door and someone who looks almost exactly like you saying they are you. If a doppelganger shows up, you've got every reason to be nervous. And that's what AI art is, a scary doppelganger with nefarious intent. Which then leads me to reason number 3. This is the most important reason. You could argue against everything I've just said. You could disagree with the idea that art generated by AI has little to no artistic merit. Indeed, I try not to be single-minded in anything, and the line between art and non-art is very fuzzy. Paint a picture of an apple? That's art. Take a picture of an apple? That's art. But if an AI uses that same apple as a prompt and creates something similar to either the painting or the photo, is that not art, even though it looks nearly identical? The actual product itself means nothing? Only the method used to create it? What if it's an elaborate painting that anyone would call art, but an AI version that's barely different? Is that now not art? But then what if the artist themselves used AI to add something small to the piece? Would that be art because of the intention, or because a specific percentage of the image was created as art and not just AI? Is there a line there? Is there an exact amount, an exact number that the image can be manipulated by AI before it's not art anymore? But if that artist made that change using AI and then you said it was art, what if somebody else made that exact same change using AI? Would it then not be art, even though it's literally the exact same image? What if you're just looking at the piece and you don't even know where it came from? Is it possible to determine if it's art or not? Does it even matter? Are we just arguing semantics? Ah! See, this is why I'm trying not to get too far into it. It's too complicated. The point I'm trying to make is, wherever you stand on the merit of AI art, however strongly you feel about it, however much you would like to see it used in games, there is one reason I believe it is an objectively bad thing, especially in the context of AI-driven NPCs and similar concepts. There is precisely one reason why Ubisoft and similar companies are getting into this. It's so they don't have to spend as much money on actual artists. That's it. That's all of it. They can go on and on about innovative tech and using it to make better games all they want. But when you look at everything else they do and stand for, it's crystal clear that AI NPCs excite them because they're slobbering at the idea of no longer having to pay for writers. In fact, just last year, they showed off a different AI tool that can be used to iterate on lines of dialogue. You know, that thing that a person, a writer usually does. To some, this might seem like catastrophizing, assuming the worst. But when it comes to these big corporations, I've learned that you can very safely assume the worst in every single case. AI will be used to replace artists. That is the fact of the matter. It's already starting to happen, and it's only gonna happen more and more as the tech advances. When they can get away with using nothing more than AI voices, they will do it. When they can teach an AI to model a game environment, they will do it. And when their AI can write dialogue and create NPCs who act like humans, suddenly they will have very little need for human writers. And the waters are still quite murky here because one could argue that this is simply the march of progress. As technology advances, we learn how to streamline many processes, which results in the natural loss of jobs. The Industrial Revolution, machines invented to mass produce goods that previously could only be produced by hand, permanently changed the world. Countless jobs were lost. But that was simply the price of progress. And since then, computers have similarly eliminated the need for many jobs. Factories and computers have created jobs too, sure, but there is no denying that jobs are constantly becoming obsolete. Yet we, as a society, still embrace this progress. We generally believe that it's worth it to have all of these modern conveniences. And maybe AI is the same? It will replace people, but maybe it's worth it because that's simply how technology works, right? If new tech could make something cheaper and easier to accomplish, you've gotta use it, right? Over the years, we've seen countless industries flounder and even collapse because they refused to embrace advancing technology, refused to embrace change. I mean, there are still executives out there stubbornly clinging to newspapers and cable TV, and they are generally seen as very silly. And indeed, I would not fault a game developer for using AI tools to make things easier. There are so many ways that development has been streamlined, made so much simpler and more accessible, which is great because game dev is incredibly complicated and difficult. The more tools that exist, the more people you have making games. The easier it is for smaller studios to accomplish amazing things, and that's all objectively great for the industry. But this is where the whole art angle comes back into play. Creating an AI that can help cut down on coding time, on pure labor, that's one thing. With games, it's the finished product that most people will end up seeing as art. And the easier it is to make that art, the easier it is to get it to those people, the better. Yes, it might still mean the loss of some jobs if now 10 people can perform a task that previously took 12, which is unfortunate, but at least it's more natural. Cutting down on the need for raw labor has many benefits. But when you're talking about the actual, literal, individual pieces of art that go into a game, that's not something you should let a machine handle. Using AI to create that art outright, that's not an issue of convenience and accessibility. That's not just a time saver. That compromises the work itself. That's a line too far, a line that should not be crossed. It's one thing to invent a new streamlining tool that naturally eliminates the need for some jobs. Like I said, computers killed a ton of jobs, but they ended up becoming a whole industry in themselves. But AI takes it too far. It's too easy to achieve a product for too little effort. It's got the potential to not just eliminate some jobs, it can potentially eliminate a staggering number of them. And no, unlike what AI-loving folks will tell you, everything will not just balance out because of the jobs created by AI. There will be AI engineers, sure, and there will be people there working with the AI, feeding it prompts, cleaning up the final products and all that, but it will not even almost balance out. And the better the tech gets, the fewer people will be involved in the process. If AI ever reaches a point where 5 people and an AI can replace an entire art team consisting of concept artists, technical artists, environmental artists, animators, voice actors, sound engineers, composers, and even more, then that's what will happen. Will it ever become that extreme? I don't know. Maybe not, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is only the beginning. And however far AI can go, however many jobs it can eventually replace, that's exactly what's going to happen. Maybe the government will step in and try to help regulate things, but personally, I ain't counting on it. Pandora's box has been opened, and there is no closing it now. And that is why I don't want AI NPCs in my games, or any kind of AI art, really. Even if it's got its uses, I think the only way to stop it from taking over is to keep opposing it. Just keep rejecting its uses in every case. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to be complicit in AI's rapid assimilation of every possible artistic industry by continuing to consume it when convenient to me. Yeah, that's funny.